Welcome to our Curriculum Development Framework for 21st Century Competencies. This presentation maps how to embed transversal skills across modules so students gain adaptability, collaboration, and critical thinking. Over the next slides, we'll explore why these competencies matter, how to define them, practical strategies for integration, assessment approaches, and the institutional supports needed for lasting change. This slide gives an overview of the framework's structure and the key chapters we'll cover, from understanding core competencies to implementation and institutional support. Think of this as our roadmap. Each section builds on the previous one, so you can see how definitions, mapping, pedagogy, and assessment connect to create a coherent approach across the curriculum. In this chapter introduction, we set the stage for defining 21st century competencies and why they matter in modern education. We'll unpack what transversal skills are, how they differ from content knowledge, and why these capabilities help students navigate complexity, learn continuously, and apply learning across diverse contexts, rather than just recall facts for tests. This slide explains the global shift driving the need for new competencies, pointing to changing workforce demands, technological advances, and demographic shifts. Job postings now emphasize critical thinking, communication, and collaboration more than technical facts. And national frameworks are responding, so education must evolve to prepare learners for unpredictable futures and meaningful participation in society. Here we define transversal skills across three core domains: critical thinking, digital literacy, and collaboration. Critical thinking includes sound reasoning and managing complexity. Digital literacy covers information, evaluation, and ethical participation online. Collaboration focuses on effective communication and teamwork. These domains are intentionally transferable, helping students apply skills across subjects and real-world tasks. This chapter intro highlights current gaps in traditional curriculum design and explains why transformation is urgent. We'll look at how isolated skills teaching, unclear definitions, and assessment limitations undermine competency development, and we'll set the stage for an integrated approach that embeds transversal skills into authentic tasks rather than treating them as separate add-ons. This slide outlines the integration gap in practice, showing how skills are often taught in isolation, collaboration doesn't automatically generate critical thinking, and assessments prioritize recall. The takeaway is that without shared definitions, structured instruction, and authentic assessment, transferable skills won't develop reliably. So the path forward is purposeful, embedding across modules to create real practice opportunities. Here we compare the traditional siloed model with an integrated approach, highlighting cross-curricular connections, contextual skill development, and authentic assessment. Project-based and inquiry-based learning feature as practical ways to bring multiple competencies together in real-world tasks, enabling students to use critical thinking, digital tools, and communication simultaneously, rather than learning each skill in isolation. This chapter introduces the core transversal skills framework and previews deep dives into critical thinking, digital literacy, and collaboration. We'll explore each domain's subskills, classroom applications, and how progression can be scaffolded across years, offering concrete strategies teachers can use to make skill development explicit, measurable, and relevant to subject content and real-world challenges. This slide digs into critical thinking and problem-solving, emphasizing sound reasoning, evidence evaluation, metacognition, and creativity. Real-world problems are ambiguous, so students need practices that build adaptive thinking and uncertainty tolerance. Classroom applications like Socratic questioning, debate, and problem mazes show how to make analytical skills visible and transferable across subjects and contexts. This slide focuses on digital literacy as navigation of the information landscape, including technical skills, critical evaluation, ethical awareness, and adaptive behavior. We introduce progression from basic ICT operations in early years to advanced digital production and data privacy in later years, and reference the TPAC model to remind educators that technology, pedagogy, and content must be integrated thoughtfully. In this section, we explore collaboration and communication as social learning in action, highlighting competencies like effective communication, teamwork, cross-cultural competence, and conflict resolution. The slide contrasts structured group work with unstructured approaches and provides collaborative strategies such as jigsaw and think, pair, share, showing how deliberate design supports equitable participation and collective problem-solving in classroom practice. This chapter opens our discussion on curriculum mapping strategies and offers systematic approaches to embedding competencies into existing modules rather than adding new courses. We'll examine horizontal and vertical mapping, spiral curriculum design, and practical steps for making skill development intentional, visible, and reinforced across subjects and grade levels, so learning builds coherently over time. This slide explains curriculum mapping as integrating skill development points within existing modules, using horizontal mapping across subjects and vertical mapping across years. A spiral progression example shows how critical thinking can move from identifying patterns in Year 1 to synthesizing evidence and argumentation by Year 3, illustrating how deliberate sequencing strengthens transfer and depth of learning. Here we present 7 principles for embedding transversal skills, emphasizing holistic course design, inclusivity, reflection, interactivity, relevance, appropriate timing, and collaboration. These principles shift development from incidental to intentional by ensuring learning opportunities are explicit, practiced, and assessed, and by encouraging departments to use digital tools and shared practices to create a coherent progression for students. This chapter introduces implementation across modules, focusing on practical, pedagogical approaches and instructional strategies that translate the framework into classroom practice. We'll look at project-based learning as a primary vehicle, collaborative structures, digital enablers, and a step-by-step approach teachers can follow to plan, execute, and assess competency development in authentic learning experiences. This slide presents project-based learning as the primary vehicle for integrated skill development, explaining why PBL works. It immerses students in sustained inquiry, teamwork, and public-facing products. We outline key components like authentic problems, sustained inquiry, student agency, reflection, and iterative feedback, and provide concrete examples such as sustainable gardens, digital storytelling, and community research projects. On this slide, we outline structured, collaborative learning approaches in practice, such as the jigsaw method and think, pair, share, along with guidance on group formation, role assignment, facilitation, and implementation steps. The emphasis is on deliberate design that balances skills and interpersonal dynamics, assigns clear responsibilities, and uses simple protocols so collaboration supports both learning and assessment. This slide surveys digital tools and platforms that enable collaboration and learning beyond the classroom, from Google Workspace and digital portfolios to mind mapping, video conferencing, and interactive boards. Technology extends flexibility, documentation, and global reach, but the focus remains pedagogical. Tools should support sustained collaboration, feedback cycles, and authentic production, rather than be used for their own sake. This chapter opens our exploration of authentic assessment and evaluation, focusing on how to measure transversal skills meaningfully. We'll cover strategies that capture both process and product, ensure assessments align with complex competencies, and create rubrics and progression continua that guide instruction while providing evidence of growth beyond traditional tests and quizzes. This slide presents authentic assessment strategies such as project-based evaluations, digital portfolios, peer and self-assessment, performance-based tasks, and collaborative problem-solving observations. The core message is that assessing applied skills requires multifaceted approaches with clear rubrics and criteria, so educators can capture students' ability to transfer competencies to novel, real-world challenges rather than just recall facts. Here we introduce rubrics and progression continua as tools to chart development from novice to expert across critical thinking, collaboration, and digital literacy. By defining observable categories and levels: novice, developing, proficient, advanced teachers, can give targeted feedback, scaffold instruction, and gradually remove supports as students demonstrate deeper, more independent skill use. This chapter header signals our focus on institutional support systems and the conditions needed for successful, sustainable implementation. We'll consider how leadership, time, resources, training, and phased implementation plans create the enabling environment for embedding transversal skills at scale, emphasizing the systemic work required beyond individual classrooms. This slide outlines professional development and teacher training essentials, describing a comprehensive framework that combines initial workshops with coaching, peer observation, and professional learning communities. Core training areas include facilitation techniques, collaborative learning protocols, assessment design, technology integration, and cross-curricular planning. And the point is that capacity building must be sustained, job-embedded, and collaborative. On this slide, we describe essential institutional requirements and common barriers, from leadership commitment and time for collaborative planning to technology infrastructure and curriculum flexibility. We also propose a phased implementation approach foundation, pilot, scale, so schools can build awareness, test strategies in select classrooms, gather data, and expand thoughtfully while addressing resistance, time constraints, accountability pressures, and resource limits. In this closing slide, we emphasize that transforming education for tomorrow requires systematic planning, sustained commitment, and collaborative effort across stakeholders. By embedding critical thinking, digital literacy, and collaboration across modules, we prepare students for lifelong learning, career resilience, and active citizenship, and we invite educators to view this journey as ongoing work that builds meaningful, transferable competencies over time.